What's going on, everyone? This is Eric with SweetSpotDFS, and welcome to my review for the 2022 American Express. I don't want to spend too much time in this, but I do want to show you guys how the SweetSpot process did this week and talk a little bit about the tournament. But let's go ahead, let's jump right into this. First thing I want to talk about, giveaways. The first giveaway being the subscriber giveaway. This required us to get to 275 subscribers, as you can see on the screen. We unfortunately did not. We're at 271. We had a couple new ones, but then we lost some. So if you're watching this and you've not yet subscribed, please do so, because once we hit 275, we'll run this giveaway, and one of you lucky people out there will win $10. The second giveaway was a Prize Picks giveaway, and that required you to sign up on Prize Picks using the promo code SweetSpot and put $20 into your account. Unfortunately, the analytics team at Prize Picks hasn't provided me a new report, so I can't see any new signups. What I will do though, once I do get a new report, if any of you guys have signed up using Prize Picks within the last 3 weeks, I'll just go ahead and automatically give you $20. But going forward, again, in order for us to run this giveaway, you need to sign up, put $20 into your account, and use the promo code SweetSpot. So today, we're not doing any giveaways because I don't have anything to show me any new signups. So unfortunately, no giveaways once again, which is a bummer. Hopefully next week we will though. Let's go ahead, let's get into this. Let's talk about the tournament really quickly. Hudson Swafford wins at 23 under. This is the second time he's won this event. I don't think it's very surprising to see someone like a Hudson Swafford winning this tournament. I am a firm believer that you are comfortable at certain places, and I've lived in this area. If Hudson, trying to combine his name, if Hudson Swafford is someone who absolutely enjoys this area, which I would find it hard not to, he's going to come here every single year and perform well. He might perform better than what his average baseline is throughout the year. And so he obviously has the potential to win. Now, I take a stance on the 6K range because he was $6,700 in DraftKings. I take a stance that I'm not going to own anybody over 5%. I had Hudson Swafford 5% in my lineups. Unfortunately, it was not with any of the good lineups, and we'll talk a little bit more about my strategy a little bit later in this video. But Hudson Swafford, always a chance to win. Same goes with Tom Hoagie. Some of you guys out there chose Brian Harman as your favorite 7K. So obviously in the strategy video, I told you guys, give me your favorite 7K plays. And two of you guys had said Brian Harman was. So hopefully you guys did well. I would like to know if you did. Leave your comments in the, or let me know in the comment section below. Yeah, but Brian Harman was kind of a popular play. I don't want to talk about some of these other guys. We'll kind of go through that when we review the sweet spot process, but Will Zalatoris, it's a good showing for him. We haven't seen him in a while, I think since the fall swing, I'm thinking. So seeing him up there in the top 10 is a good sign. Francesco Molinari, when I put grass stats into my model, he showed up as one of the, I wouldn't say more of the prolific 7K golfers, but it's Francesco Molinari. If you know anything about him over the last couple of years, he's been just struggling. He moved to the United States. I think he actually lives in California. So it's a good thing to see Francesco up here. I just didn't have any trust in him, and I'm sure most of you guys didn't either, because from the Masters meltdown when Tiger won in 2019, he just hasn't been the same. So I couldn't play Molinari that much. I think I had him in one lineup out of 117. But it's good to see him up there as well. Patrick Cantlay, to me, it was a Cantlay or a Rahm week. Cantlay finished inside the top 10. We'll talk more about this during the sweet spot process. And then Paul Barjon finishes up the top 10. There's some notable guys within this range below, but I don't really care to talk about them right now. Let's just go ahead and get into the optimal lineup versus the $5 GPP winning lineup. So let's see. I'm going to hide some of these columns so we can pull in some of the information over here that you can't see. What I like to do here is compare what the optimal lineup did to the GPP winning lineup. And if that optimal lineup, which you can see on the screen right now, is used up $43,000. If that's not over $49,000, I create a more realistic optimal lineup. So let's talk about what is the GPP winning lineup first. The user spent $49,700 of their $50,000 salary cap or salary. He did use Hudson Swafford, the winner, Brian Harmon, and Lanto, who both finished third. Then he actually used John Rahm. So John Rahm was in the winning GPP winning, he was in the GPP winning lineup. He also used Harold Varner III. So two people, or I should say, it's going to be three people outside the top 10 that he used. And his sixth guy was Christian Bezuidenhout, who finished 40th place. So that all scored 670.5 points. The optimal lineup scored 761 points, and again, spent $43,000, leaving $7,000 on the table. And that is all the golfers you see here with the black tick mark. Nobody over $7,900, so no one in the 8K range, no one in the 9, and no one in the 10K range. And that was Hudson Swafford, Tom Hoge, Brian Harmon, Lanto Griffin, Lee Hodges, and Denny McCarthy. You all know I don't like leaving a lot of money on the table. As long as the 6 golfers are inside the top 10 that get that are above 49,000 and still beat the GPP winning lineup, that's a more realistic optimal lineup. So I always try to find that every single week, and we were able to find that. So you would have had to have used a 10-9 Patrick Cantlay, 9-1 Will Zalatoris, and then the top 4 that you see here: Hudson Swafford, Tom Hoge, Brian Harmon, Lanto Griffin. You would have used 49,200, which means you would have left $800 on the table, which for me, that's a bit more comfortable than, leaving, well, it's just more comfortable for me. And that lineup scored 740.5. So that was, 20 points behind the optimal lineup, but it was still, 50 points ahead? No, 70 points ahead of the GPP winning lineup. So we could have gotten there just based off of salaries alone. If we were just to follow the same salary logic, it doesn't look like there was really an 8K in sight. Never mind, Siwoo Kim. So you could have played Siwoo Kim as well, because he didn't score that less of points. Let's see, 106. Yeah, because if you were to do just the traditional 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 6, that's 50,000 on the button right there. And that scores how many points? 721.5. So you still beat the GPP winning lineup by 50 points, but now we're 40 points behind the optimal lineup and 20 points behind this realistic optimal. But hey, that was one way to get there. And there is going to be a video out not too long from now talking about salaries and how often you see a 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 6 win a GPP winning lineup, but also finish inside the optimal lineup. So it is definitely one of those things I want to explore more. I think always building that way would be a smart way to do. And I might do that in this next tournament. Just like put in the optimizer, set the conditionals to just have always select a 10, a 9, an 8, 7, 7, and a 6. Let's see. And I think that's also what the GPP winning lineup did, if I'm not correct. So there was a 10 or an 11K, I should say, 8K, 1 7. So never mind. It was 3 7s as opposed to having an 8K in there. And oh man, I want to share as much as possible, but I'll just save it for a video. But that's another common lineup that you see winning a GPP or being in the optimal, which is a 10-9, 7-7-7-6, or even a 10-8, 7-7-7-6 is another common optimal lineup build. So not crazy in my opinion. But let's go ahead. Let's move on. I want to talk about the SweetSpot Score. So let me go ahead and put a filter on this sheet, which is the dream sheet, obviously, and sort. Now, if you recall, there were 2 different rankings, right? One was including all the grass stats, the Pete Dye stats, that kind of stuff. So all of these stats that you see highlighted on the screen. And then the other one it included, okay, hold on. One included those grass stats plus the other stats that I'm looking at right here. Whereas if you didn't want the grass stats, that was an option too. And it all determined based off of this being Y. So you can see what the ranks are over here. If I were to hit just remove this, you can see it changes and you can see the ranks now mirror the rankings you have over here. But again, if I wanted that Y to stay there, you can see the different ranks. So what I like to see, or what I want to see, are the SweetSpot score having optimal lineup golfers inside the top 20. I want to see at least 4. And obviously we see 0. And this score over here does not include the grass stats. So if I were to scroll all the way over here, here, let's do this. I'm gonna have to do this way. So if you aren't aware, Google Sheets doesn't like when there are active formulas when you're trying to enter them into certain fields. But now what I did is I copied over the grass rankings, or the rankings that include the grass stats, over to what my SweetSpot rank is. We'll see how well it did looking at grass stats. And in all honesty, I still don't see as many optimal lineups. I see less cuts, like less missed cuts, I should say, than I did in the other. Like the top up here looks a lot better than what the previous ranks did, but it's still not good. So this was definitely a volatile week. I think anybody would just say that just looking at the leaderboard. But yeah, unfortunately, the rankings just didn't do well. And I switched it back to the grassless ranks. So unfortunately, not great looking at the SweetSpot rank. Which to me, I mean, it could tell me one of two things. It could tell me the ranks, like there's just no predicting this tournament. Like you can't really, based off of someone's skill, find the right guys. I also know that there are a bunch of Corn Ferry golfers and rookies that were in the top 10. Let's sort by the result. So like Lee Hodges is a rookie, I guess, and Paul Barjon. Those are really the only two. So I'll take that back. But yeah, some of these other guys, I mean, their ranks aren't terrible just to begin with. Like everybody is within, I mean, minus Francesco, but if you include Francesco's grass stats, he's 49th. So there has to be kind of like an in-between there that we have to look at. But either way, everyone is less than 101. In a 156-man field, that's pretty good. Like I have no issues with that whatsoever. Yeah, I still want it to be better, but I don't know. I'm gonna say that failed. The SweetSpot score was not great. We can also take a look at Marquee tee times. So obviously, if you're with me in previous or in the strategy video, you understand how we get to the Marquee tee times. I'm not going to repeat this. If you haven't seen the strategy video and all of this and how I get to the Marquee tee times, I highly encourage you guys to watch it. But as we look at this, this one looks bad too. We do have a bunch of GPP winning lineup guys in here. I mean, we have 3 of them, which is good, but we only have 1 optimal lineup golfer, and it takes the SweetSpot score into consideration. So obviously, if that didn't do well, we're not going to find a lot of our Marquee tee time pairings inside the Marquee. Well, we're not going to find any of our Marquee tee time pairings in the optimal lineup, which obviously we don't see here. So that is unfortunate. If we look at the honorable mentions, not great, very bad. Okay, so that's interesting. This week was weird anyways, because we only have pairings that went by 2s, and if you're with me in the strategy video, I wasn't sure exactly how to make any of that out. Usually we have 3 golfers in a pairing, and it's much simpler. There are less golfers in that pool. Like we had 24 golfers in this pool. That's the most you're ever going to see on a normal tournament. So the fact we see 24 here, and none of them did well, that's concerning. Like a consolation would be each one of these, or I shouldn't even say each one of them. 80% of them would have at least 1 top 10. Or maybe even a top 20, which it kind of appears that's what happened. So in a way, it did succeed. Like you got Sung Jae, Cantlay, Henley, Lanto, Siwoo, Zalatoris, Rom, those are all somewhat successes in my book. I mean, you got Lanto, which was the in the optimal lineup, but there are only 3 groups out of the 8 groups, actually out of the 12 groups you see on the screen, that didn't produce one top 20. So like your Adam Hadwin, Alex Noren lineup, I didn't have any trust in that. Mickelson Fowler, I also didn't have any trust in that one. And then Matthew Wolff, Gary Woodland, I also didn't have any trust in that one. So what was the other one? We got one here, Howell and Gooch. So there were actually what, 4 groups out of 12. Still, we're batting 75%. Like, that's pretty good when it comes to how well he's did. It still stinks though. Like, one optimal lineup golfer is just not, it's just not good enough for me. But seeing 3 GPP winning lineups, that's not, or 3 GPP, 3 golfers in the GPP winning lineup, that's pretty good. I do want to show you the different grass stats that you know I wanted to look at. So if we went by overall bent grass stats, remember we talked about the overseed, you know, there were POA greens. I told you they're going to be more like bent grass. We're also on Pete Dye golf courses. So let's go ahead and let's look at all of these stats. So we'll start here with bent grass and really just pay attention to this column here just to see how many top 20s and missed cuts you see, and also how many optimal lineups, which will have that little black tick mark. These blue ones here are your optimal, or I mean your GPP winning lineup. So when we look at overall bent grass, like not terrible, but not great. And if we were to go to top 10 success rates, we have 1 optimal, 3 GPP winning lineups. I'm sorry, we were still looking at, there we go. We were still looking at Marquee Tea Time stuff. So let's go back to overall bent. So we look here. Yeah, now we have 2 missed cuts up here, but obviously they only have 1 event each. You have Lee Hodges, by the way, who only has 1 event under his belt and finished 3rd. There's 1 optimal lineup guy. Brian Harmon down here, that is like 24th of everyone that was bent grass. So pretty good there. And then if we go by top 10 success rates, it's a lot of top 20s and also missed cuts. Nobody in the optimal lineup, so not really worth looking at when it comes to bent grass. We looked at POA. We have Lanto up here, who is in the optimal. Plus, you got John Rahm. Those are really the only worthwhile guys to talk about. Not as many top 20s, so looking at POA stats, probably not the best thing to do. If we looked at their top 10 success rate, same thing applies. So just looking at those grass stats really didn't do us any good. Looking at overall Pete Dye success, we do have a lot of top 20s, probably more than we saw with bent grass. We do have 3 of the GPP winning lineup guys up here, plus 1 optimal, so it's not terrible, but not great. And top 10 Pete Dye percentage. This is again top 10 success rate at Pete Dye events. 2 GPP winnings, winning lineups, and then 1. I keep saying it that way. I mean 2 golfers in the GPP winning lineup and 1 golfer who was in the optimal. Still, those are not great. So when it came to grass stats this week, yeah, not wasting your time on them was probably the best thing to do. And obviously, if I don't include those in my stats, or in my ranks, I should say, if we just do the ranks without the grass stats, those were better rankings than if we use grass stats. So obviously, we need to either come up with a new one, which is an overseed type of what do you want to call it, ranking, or basically what I need to do with what I'm doing with POA and bent is create an overseed spreadsheet that tracks, you know, all of the finishings, or all the finishes, as well as the top 10 success rates, that kind of stuff. Basically everything you see on here I need to do for overseed, which I'm not sure I'll get to because I'd rather get a database up and running before I update the spreadsheet. So yeah, grass stats, kind of a waste of time to look at. Let's go ahead. Let's get into the bucket system. Already at 20 minutes, man. This one I won't take too long. So when we look at the bucket system, obviously we know we're trying to project how many golfers from each of these buckets are going to show up inside the top 10. The ones that are highlighted in green, those are successful projections. Remember, we're always rounding down. So all of these are zeros, although it says 0.93, 0.19, 0.11. Those all equal zeros because they're not a full one. So there is a chance that there can be zero coming from that group, and sure enough, it did. So all the greens mean the bucket hit. All the reds mean the bucket did not hit. So if you can see this, if this column has a red projection in there, that means there were more golfers than what I had projected. So obviously I had 3 as my max projection. I think there ended up being 4 that were even in the optimal lineup. I think there were 5 inside the top 10, but 4 were in the optimal. So unfortunately, we did have some miss. We did even have some of the minimums not hit. So like course history 1s, which was at 40 to 60 range. We didn't have one, or I should say we didn't have 2 golfers there, but we did have 1. And the 1 was in the optimal lineup. So kind of a consolation victory, but still not great. If we were to total all these up, let me go ahead and put a filter on this. By the way, here are your anchor buckets. So we had how many buckets to talk about? 15. 3 of them didn't hit. So 12 out of 15 of the anchor buckets, which is okay. Not like I want it to be 2 or less that don't hit. I actually want less than that, but if I'm being realistic, I would want 2 or less. Or less than, yeah, 2 or less. That works. Okay, so we got rid of the recent form buckets. Out of the remaining buckets to talk about, we had 30 of them. And if we count all the red ones here in the projections, these are the ones that did not hit. And I have 4 highlighted right now. So out of 30, 26 hit, which is a pretty good success rate. Obviously, I'd want it to be perfect. Don't get me wrong. And when it came to lineup building, you know, I don't know if you really could, like, you really got hurt, you know, picking, you know, going with the bucket logic that we have with the projections. So here's what I want to do. Let me build a, actually, I know the lineup I would want to build when it comes to at least the salary structure. Remember, we want all 6 golfers inside the top 10. So for me, I know it's Patrick Cantlay. I also know it's Will Zalatoris. And then it's the 4 that we have up here. Let me just double check that. Yeah, it's 49,200. We can't really build any other lineups that fit the salary mark that also beat the GPP winning lineup. So we have to just choose these golfers we see on the screen and see if they make sense, like if they hit the buckets. So we can start with Patrick Cantlay and look at the bucket system while we kind of go through. So he appeared in, actually, no. Let me just, the better way to do this is just to grab all the guys that we know we need. Who is the other guy? Those guys and Lanto. So here's our lineup. We want to see if this follows the bucket combination. So very first thing we're going to look at, how about last year 3s? How many do we have? We want to see at least, we got 1, 2, look at the summary, you know, max projection was 3, so that one is perfect. Last year 4s are 0s. We don't even have to look at any of those. Last year 2, we want somewhere between 1 to 3. So last year 2s, we've got 1, 2, 3. That one hits. And then, sorry, last year 1s, we want somewhere between 2 to 4. I think that one's not going to hit. For obvious reasons, we just have 1. So yeah, right away, can't build a lineup, which that kind of stinks. That one fails. What was the GPP winning lineup? Keep going to 2020. Swafford, Harmon, Griffin, Rahm, Varner, and Besidenhouse. Oh shoot, I don't think Hoagie was one of them. Already forgotten. It was Rom, Griffin, Harmon, Swafford. Got it. Get Rom in there first. Griffin, Swafford, Harmon. So here's the 6 that were in the GPP winning lineup. 3 1s, which is a good thing. 2 2s and a 3. So 3 1s, perfect. 2 2s, and then 1 3. Perfect. So that one actually follows the bucket logic. Great. Looking at last week's, let's see here. We have 3 1s. We wanted somewhere between 2 to 5, so we hit that one. There's 3 1s there. We have 1 2 and then 2 5s. So the 2 would be where? Here. Okay, it's probably not going to work out how we want it because we wanted a last week 3. So unfortunately, the bucket system, GPP winning lineup, we didn't look at the optimal lineup, but we're not leaving money on the table. The sweet spot process, again, we want over 49,000. So looking at everything, we couldn't get all 6 of our golfers inside the top 10. I'm sure we could find a lineup that would follow the bucket logic and beat the GPP winning lineup, but I'm not going to sit here and struggle to try to find it. And I'm not going to try to calculate it with you guys watching. I think it's unfortunate. It's the first time I've ever seen the sweet spot process not work, you know, in building a lineup that would have taken down the GPP winning lineup. I'm sure if we looked at all of this, we could probably, you know, figure out, yep, everything. Obviously, when we look at the buckets, most of them hit, but most of them didn't. And we could build lineups with the golfers inside the top 10, but we just couldn't this week. So that's all right. We'll chalk it up as a loss. Unfortunately, it's just a weird week. 3 rounds for a cut, pro-am. We'll try to be a little bit stronger next week. I kind of disappointed, obviously, for obvious reasons. All right, well, I'm not gonna beat myself up too much for it. Hopefully you guys did well this week. I can't say that I think I put $50 in and won 8, so lost 42. Obviously not great, but we'll hit it again at the Farmers. So thank you guys for watching. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, bye.